Welcome to Cosmic Wisdom Radio, your number one source for spiritual and metaphysical guidance and education in this great time of planetary awakening. Each week, we bring enlightening wisdom and invaluable insight to nurture the personal development of all light workers and spiritual seekers around the world. With your host, psychic medium, shamanic practitioner, and metaphysical minister, Faye Weber.
Welcome to Cosmic Wisdom Radio, episode number 5. In this episode, I will be talking about psychic ability and intuition, and that we really all have this natural ability. So the difference between psychic ability and intuition, if you're wondering, which I have definitely wondered in the past. Actually, recently, I think I learned about the difference a long time ago, and I just kind of, like a lot of other people, started using them interchangeably, which is still correct. It's not incorrect to use psychic and intuition interchangeably. But there is a slight difference if you want to get really technical. So, intuition is usually for the self, and it usually comes from the higher self. So an example of intuition would be if you have a bad feeling that you shouldn't go to an event, and you find out later at the event something really bad happened that would have affected you. So that was more for you, and that information most likely came from your higher self. Now, with psychic ability, the information is more for others, and the information usually comes from others. So using psychic ability, you're actually tuning into another person's energy and receiving information from their energy field. So the main difference is who the information is for and where the information is coming from. Now, each of these, psychic ability that you're using for others or intuition that you're experiencing for yourself, each of those can come in different ways for different people, which I'll talk about in a little bit. The next thing I want to cover is this belief that psychic and spiritual practices and abilities, that they're just God's gift and that only special people have it. That is completely not true. Everybody has a natural ability relating to psychic and intuition. Everybody has it. It's part of being human. And if you want to call that God's gift, what is everything else that people have? What are the other talents? If they didn't come from God, where do they come from? So aren't all abilities and all talents, shouldn't they all be considered God's gift? That's what I believe. And now I know that we really do all have, at the very least, our own intuition for ourselves. It's part of our instinct. It's just part of our natural being. We also do all have the capacity to use our psychic abilities. We all have these abilities within us. One way it might be easier to explain is that intuition or psychic ability, it's like a radar, and we all have it. And it's like we have this radar that can pick up different frequencies and different, or even like a radio station or something, where you can pick up different channels or frequencies. But I feel like the way I like to explain it, it's like an antenna, basically. So our psychic ability and intuition is like an antenna. And we always have that antenna up. It's just part of our natural being. However, just like any other thing that any of us can do, some of us have a more natural talent for it. So to some of us, my cat's screaming in the background. Nellie, you have to get out, honey. Oh my God. Somehow I knew she was going to do this. Let's go. Come on. Out. Come on, pretty. Out. No, you gotta go. Come on, let's go. Out. All right. So my kitty likes to talk about psychic abilities too. So anyway, where was I? So talking about psychic abilities, or even like, the whole healing field and everything as being God's gift and only special people have it, is completely not true. We all have the capacity to use the abilities that we are born with. But for some people, it just comes more naturally, and it's naturally stronger. They're more tuned in, I guess you can say. So there are, I guess, I'm included, but those who are considered psychics or mediums or whatever, we're just more naturally in tune. Our antenna is more naturally in tune with the frequencies around us. However, those who don't consider themselves that, or don't have a lot of psychic experiences, they still have that antenna. So they can learn how to harness those natural abilities that are within them. So really everyone, regardless of what you think about yourself, everybody has the capacity to develop their psychic abilities and their intuition. Just like, another thing that I'm good at, and there's a lot of other people that I know are, but I've always had a natural talent for music. And ever since I was like 5 years old, I was never taught how to play the piano, but I would get on the piano and start playing Mary Had a Little Lamb and a bunch of the kids' songs, and I just figured it out. So I just had a natural good ear to learn how to play music. But then somebody else may have no clue what in the world to touch on the piano, and so they may take a few years of lessons, but they could turn out to be just as good as someone who was naturally talented at it. And the same thing goes with psychic abilities, healing work, intuition, and that kind of stuff. And some evidence of that is if you even think of your own experiences. If you're someone who doesn't think of yourself as psychic or intuitive, or you think other people are special if they have it, I know that every person on this planet at some point has had some kind of psychic or intuitive experience. Some of the most common ones are when you start thinking of somebody out of nowhere, maybe someone you haven't seen in a long time, and then all of a sudden you run into them at the store. Or all of a sudden they send you a text message or a friend request on Facebook. So that's because your antenna is out. And for whatever reason, your antenna picked up the frequency that event was coming into your life. So, that's one of the most common ones. It happens probably to everybody a lot, at least a few times in someone's lifetime, thinking of somebody and then you see them or you hear from them or something like that. I was just thinking about you. Oh my God. Well, because we both have our antennas out and you were sensing each other. Some other things that happen for people. Some people have dreams that end up coming true. That's actually one type of psychic ability. Some people receive their information through dreams. But I know that, everyday person, I know that it's very common for someone to have intuitive information come through in their dreams. So it's really a very common thing. Also, another thing that can happen, or that's very common, is if you have a really bad feeling about an event you're supposed to go to, and you just really feel like, I shouldn't go. And then you don't go, and you find out later something bad happened that you avoided. That's also a common occurrence for people. But a lot of times throughout life, people will just look at it, oh, hey, that was a weird coincidence. And they don't realize that they do have psychic ability and they are being intuitive because it's part of being human. So that's like, the natural way that it usually happens. It's basically the human spiritual instinct, in a sense, our intuition. Some of the problem with talking about psychic abilities and intuition with people is that they don't really understand it. Your common everyday person who is not very open to metaphysics or, an open spirituality, there's a lot of myths and misconceptions about it. One of the most common ones is that psychics know everything. And we're like God. I wish I knew everything, because that would mean I would have no problems and I would be really, really rich and I wouldn't be making this podcast. Because I would be out enjoying, some awesome week at the Caribbean on my vacation boat or whatever, because I hit the lottery because I knew the lottery numbers. It doesn't work that way. We don't know everything. We really don't know everything. We're not supposed to know everything, and neither are you. So it just doesn't work that way. Other people believe that all psychics know the future. We know everything that's going to happen. We know when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, all the details. No, we don't know. Not everyone even specializes in the future. And being able to tell the future is only one type of psychic ability. There are several different types of abilities. And precognition, or sensing future events, is only one type. And not everyone has that as their strong ability, or their strongest ability. Another thing that bothers me is, and it's not even just, people that do it, but it's actual so-called psychics that do it. I really don't like when people use the word clairvoyant or throw around the word clairvoyant. Because clairvoyant, if someone is strictly clairvoyant, that would be pretty amazing. Because most psychics have more than one ability, more than one way that information comes through, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. But clairvoyance is only one type of psychic ability, and that's the ability to receive information through images in the mind's eye. For some reason, some people have it twisted and think a clairvoyant is someone who knows the future, or they just use the word clairvoyant in general to describe a psychic. Totally not correct. Clairvoyance is only one type of psychic ability, which I'll explain all of that soon. There's also a difference between a psychic and a medium. So, someone who is psychic, like we have been talking about, someone who is psychic can receive information from that antenna, or through that antenna. So a psychic, what they do is they will sit with somebody and do a psychic reading for that person, or an intuitive reading or whatever, for that person, relating to life questions. And there's no loved ones involved, there's no spirits, the deceased are not involved. It's strictly between the psychic reader and the client, and the reader's spirit guides, and sometimes even the client's spirit guides, and that's it. So it has nothing to do with spirits or mediumship or ghosts or nothing. Like, they're completely separate. So someone who is psychic has psychic abilities. Somebody who is a medium has to have those psychic abilities in order to communicate with the dead. So, in other words, all mediums are psychics, but not all psychics are mediums. So there really is a difference. Many end up doing both, and they're usually a psychic and a medium, so they'll do a regular psychic reading or a mediumship session. In a mediumship session, what makes it different is that has nothing to do with your, problems in life or anything like that. And that is strictly confirming the presence of your loved ones in the spirit world. So they are completely different. There's different ways that you make the connection. They're a totally different format. They're not the same. But so when it comes to a psychic or a medium, there is a difference. All mediums have to be psychic in order to receive information from the spirits. But not all psychics are or choose to become mediums. When it comes to a psychic reading or intuitive reading, intuitive guidance, spiritual guidance, a lot of these terms are used interchangeably by practitioners according to their preference. And it seems in recent days that the term psychic reading is becoming more rare because it ended up with such a bad name. So a lot of people are using terms more like intuitive reading, intuitive guidance, which is actually something I have chosen to do as well. A lot of people think that when they get a psychic reading that they're getting fortune telling, and they want to know what's going to happen in the future. When will this happen? When will I fall in love? Will I ever this? Blah, 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 blah. They want to know if they're going to get married, how many kids they're going to have, what colors are going to be in the wedding, what date is it going to be? When, you know what I mean? They want to know all the entertainment stuff. To me, that's entertainment stuff. Telling all future stuff is disempowering, which I will get into more soon. So an actual reading, an intuitive reading, or a real, true, ethical psychic reading is not based on the future. It's based on the here and now, and it is based on helping somebody. And it's helping and guiding, empowering. Empowering somebody in a reading is actually one of the most important elements. So being told your future is not empowering. What does that do for you? Maybe it makes you excited for something. It might make you dread the future. But what help does it actually do for you? Not really anything, because I know most people, when they get fortune telling or they want to know something about the future, they're probably going to forget all about it until it actually happens. And then when it does happen, they're going to be like, oh, that's right, that lady told me that this was going to happen. Well, what good did it do for you? You spent a couple $100 to know about something, a couple years from now that you totally even forgot about. Just to say later that the lady said it was going to happen. I've never understood that, honestly. Also, all the future stuff and the fortune telling is very disempowering. You're taking away your own power to create your life if you rely too much on what someone tells you about the future. It actually can ruin your life, if you take it too seriously. So anyway, fortune telling is, when I think of fortune telling, I think of the usual fake lady on the boardwalk charging $5 for a reading. If you're charging $5 for a reading, I'm sorry, but you are either not real or you're not serious about your work. Or you really like your day job. Look, if you really like your day job, go ahead and charge $5 for a reading. But I guess, maybe there's the people at the shore, maybe they get 100 people a day. But then how the hell do you do 100 readings in a day? That's why those people in the shore, they are not real. I'm sorry. I've been to one before. I don't want to knock all of them because there may be some that are. So I don't want to group all of them together. But they're usually not real, and they're usually the ones that do the fortune telling. So they're going to say all this stuff about the future that you can't confirm because it hasn't happened yet. So I personally just find it pointless, and it's not what I specialize in. I'm really good at it. I really am good at precognition and future stuff, but I choose to not focus on it for several reasons. So an actual psychic or intuitive reading brings you guidance, insight, and empowerment. And it is best done when it revolves around your questions, as opposed to just a general reading. And the difference is, a general reading is what some people seem to like that, where you just go into a psychic and you don't say a word and you just sit down like a dummy, playing dumb. And then you play the let's just see what she gets game. And you just sit there and make her feel like an idiot. And you just expect them to know everything and just start, saying everything that they're getting. Which actually is a way to do a reading. And it's actually the way that we learn. When you take a class, that's what you're thrown into. You're thrown into doing general readings. Because it really is what helps develop your abilities. It really does help. Because it just kind of throws you into it. But on a realistic level with a client, I don't prefer general readings. Because I don't find them as helpful. Because it feels more like I'm entertaining somebody. And it kind of starts to feel more like a fortune telling. What I feel, and I feel like it's probably the most popular at this point, but what I personally prefer, because my goal is to help, because, If I'm not healing or teaching, I'm not happy. So when I do a reading, I need to be somehow helping them, either, teaching them or helping them to heal themselves or to heal a situation or to have insight so they can make a change, empowering them. So my goal is always to help somebody. And I would rather focus on getting down to what they want to know. If you go for a general reading, if you have problems you need help with, do not ever get a general reading. Because you may end up with information that you could care less about. I mean, a psychic isn't going to know everything that you know, everything that you want to ask. We don't know everything, which I explained earlier. So we're not going to read your mind and know all the answers, all the answers that you want or all the questions that you have. You have to ask them. So if you want entertainment, go get a general reading or a fortune telling. If you actually want help and guidance and insight and you want to feel empowered about your life, then you want to get a reading that is more like an intuitive based reading or intuitive reading, intuitive guidance, spiritual guidance. And the format there is more asking questions. So you would just say, this is what's going on. I want to know, should I do this or should I do that? Or is it a good idea for me to do this? Should I leave my job? Should I stay in my relationship? Is this guy worth it? Blah, blah, blah. So it's actual questions that are going to help you. And that's where I focus. But so there are differences and there are readers who have their own styles. So I'm not knocking fortune telling because honestly in my readings, a lot of times future stuff does come up. And I'm usually right. I mean, it's every once in a while, I guess maybe I'm not, but for the most part, from what I have been told, I am usually right. So I'm really good at it, but that doesn't mean I want to do it all the time or focus on it. Because I prefer to empower people. But sometimes telling the future can be empowering. Because if you get that, two people are never going to be together, or there's probably not not a huge chance that it's going to happen. Maybe it helps that person to focus somewhere else or to focus on somebody else. So future can be helpful sometimes, but focusing on it or getting a reading just based on it is really not very helpful. Now I want to get back to what I was talking about earlier with the different types of psychic abilities when I was talking about clairvoyance. And this comes back to everybody and the common experiences that I was talking about. So everybody has one or more of these abilities, and we usually have one or two that are our strongest. They can also change over time. The first psychic ability. Now, what I mean by psychic ability is how a psychic receives information. So how in the world do we get that information? Where does it come from? Or where do we receive it? It's not where it comes from. It's where we receive it in ourselves. So the first type of ability is clairvoyance. And clairvoyance means that you receive information through images in your mind. So the information comes through in pictures. Sometimes it's more like a movie or a scene or whatever. But it mainly comes out in pictures and images. And most people, it happens inside the mind, as if you were having a thought of your own. So when you think, I really got to make sure I stop and get cat food on the way home. If you're just thinking that in your head while you're driving, that's very similar to how clairvoyance, actually, no, that's more like clairaudience. But if you were, hold on, let me go back. I'm thinking the wrong thing. So clairvoyance, for example, would be more like imagining something in your mind. So just picturing something in your mind. So right now, if you just think, imagine seeing an apple in your mind's eye. And just see like a red apple. Red, shiny apple. It's big. Maybe it has, see it with a hole in it. So the yellow is sticking out a little bit. Now see when I described that, the picture that it paints in your mind. That vision of the apple, that's how clairvoyance comes through in psychic ability. Now clairaudience is clairaudience is where you receive information through hearing. And clairaudience is the one where if you were driving in the car on the way home and you thought to yourself, oh, I got to stop and get cat food. Clairaudience is similar to your own inner thought. The way that it comes through and that you experience it is very similar to your own thoughts. So clairvoyance is usually not seeing physically outside of yourself, like if you see a person or you see the dog. And clairaudience is usually not a voice outside of yourself, like someone talking in the room or like you hear me now. Instead, clairvoyance is more internal. Clairaudience is more internal. Now, it's rare, but I have heard that some people actually do experience them externally, where they actually see with their physical eyes or hear with their physical ears. But it's not all that common. Most commonly, the abilities are experienced internally. The third type of ability is clairsentience, and that is receiving information through feeling or sensing. So in clairsentience, if a psychic was doing a reading and they were receiving the information with clairsentience or feeling, that, maybe let's just say the client asked, will I get the job that I want? The psychic might get a dreadful feeling or a negative feeling, or they might feel sad and they might sense, okay, this is probably a no. So they are different, A clairvoyant, for the same question, will I get the job? A clairvoyant might see the word no, or they might see the company hiring somebody else. Someone who's clairaudient might hear the word no, or they might hear the phrase, they're hiring someone else. Someone who's clairsentient, like I was just saying, they may get a negative feeling or a low feeling, or they might feel sad, so they feel the no. The other two clairs, clairalience is receiving information through smell, and clairgustance is receiving information through taste. Those two are considered the most rare. I really don't experience either of those. My two strongest are three. Clairvoyance, clairaudience, and precognition are my three strongest. And then clairsentience, and then the smell and taste, I don't really get those. But some people do. I'm not going to focus too much on them, but, because they're pretty easy to figure out. Clairalience is smell. Clairgustance, they receive information through taste. Precognition is the ability to see future events. Precognition is one of my strong ones. Precognition is also known as prophecy. And precognition in itself is almost a separate topic from clairvoyance, clairaudience, and clairsentience. Because precognition, or knowing something about the future, can come to somebody. It can come to a psychic clairvoyantly, clairaudiently, or through clairsentience. So precognition is the ability to see into the future or to know the future, but that information can be received through vision, hearing, or feeling. Now I want to talk about the difference between a psychic and an empath. And there is a slight difference. First of all, if you feel that you're an empath is someone who is very sensitive to the energies around them, especially when they are in a crowd or a group of people. They often will pick up on the emotions of other people, usually the negative ones. Sometimes it's probably the happy ones, but it seems to be, unfortunately, more so the negative ones. At least they're more noticeable. And an empath can get very drained very quickly if they don't learn how to protect themselves and control that ability. Also, I believe that those who are empaths are meant to be healers. Because being an empath, sensing the energy of people and sensing the emotion of people, especially the negative, that is such a lead-in to being a healer. Because as a healer, you need to be able to do those things. It really ties in together. So if you feel like you're an empath, you probably are also being called to be a healer. So anyway, there is a difference between being a psychic and an empath. A lot of people are both. They often come together. But for some people, one is more stronger than the other. Or, one is just more dominant and the other one is not dominant. So being psychic, or, psychic ability is more information based. So if you're psychic, you are naturally more open to receive information, whether it's about a person, an event, a place. So psychic is more information based. Empath is more emotion based. So someone who's an empath, so I can use myself for an example. I do feel like I am very empathic, but I feel like it was my psychic ability that was even stronger when I was little. Because what would happen to me is I would walk into a room of people and I would feel, I think, the energy and emotion. But what was really scary was that I was receiving information about people I didn't know. And that was, scary and overwhelming. And then it's like, oh my God, am I crazy? Am I making this up? And then you find out later that it's right, or, you don't really understand what's happening, especially when you're young. But so for me, on the psychic side, I was very sensitive to information. So I would be bombarded with information about the people around me. Now, someone who is more dominantly an empath could be in the same room and they're not picking up information, but they're getting the emotions. So they're picking up the sadness or the depression or the anger or the stress, the anxiety, the hatred, or maybe if it's positive, the love, the joy, who knows. But so there is a slight difference. Psychic is more information based. Empath is more emotion based. Also, empaths, naturally, I believe that they're very clairsentient. So empaths can be trained, can, I think, very, very easily be trained in psychic development. They're already using their clairsentience, so. I wanted to get into another topic here that I feel a lot of people wonder about psychics and mediums, is why are they so damn expensive? Why are we so damn expensive? Because I'm not really cheap either. But there is a reason behind it, and it's really not usually because, we're greedy frauds and phonies, or whatever they call us. There definitely are frauds out there that have given it a bad name. And they charge, sky high amounts of money. But there are also very real, genuine psychics and mediums who also charge a significant amount of money. And so it can be difficult finding one who's real. It can be hard. The reason why they tend to be so expensive, first of all, not all, but many people who go into this field end up deciding that they would like to do it for a living. And they can't stand their day job. I'm one of these people, by the way. Like me, I worked in an office for 20 years. Not the same office. Which is actually kind of why I eventually realized I need to stop working in the office. But I would have a job, and I'd be there for a couple months, and I would have that new fresh feeling, and I'd be all excited to start my new venture. And probably about 6 months in, I'd be ready to go. And I start being late. It was like I'd be late every day, running in at the last minute. And honestly, I would end up slacking off, play on the internet. I was just like, I just didn't want to be there anymore. And so then I'd start looking for the next job. And then the same thing would happen. I usually lasted about 2 years at each job. And I often did leave for more money, which is what a lot of people do. But the only reason I was doing it is because I was always so miserable. And I'm like, why am I always so miserable? I could never figure out why I was so miserable working in an office. Because I was good at it. There's a lot of elements I did like about it. But I didn't understand at the time that it just wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. But so anyway, I personally hated my day job. So when I realized my life purpose was to do, psychic and healing work, that's when I realized, if I ever want to leave this miserable day job, I need to make sure I can make enough money through my business. I've always been a self-employed type of person. So I've always kind of wanted to not have an employer. Nobody likes a boss, but some people are just not meant to work for somebody else. I'm one of those people. So, if you want to actually make a living being a psychic or a medium, you have to make sure that you're making enough money to survive. Because I don't know what people think, but we do not work 8 hours a day. It's almost, I mean, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but to do 8 readings, 1 hour readings or 7 or 6 or whatever in a day, that's really draining. Very, very draining. Especially if you are putting your all, putting all your energy and effort into one person, which is the way that I work. I don't want to do more than one a day. Really. Because I prefer to really put all of my energy into that client that day. Like that day is dedicated to that client. That's the way that I like to work. And I know that there's a lot of other people who are like that as well. It's good. It's good for me. It keeps me from getting drained. It keeps me from getting burnout. This kind of work can be draining if you do it too much, and some people will burn out. So I would like to not do that because I love what I do. But so anyway, no, we do not work 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday. So we cannot live off of $20 per reading, thinking that we're making $20 an hour. Well, we're not working 8 hours, not just because it's draining, but there's not 8 hours worth of people lined up at a psychic's door. It just isn't the way that it works. It's true. Same thing with, healing and Reiki. There's not 20 people lined up at the door in one day for some kind of spiritual service. It's still kind of underground. It's got a little more mainstream and acceptable, I guess, but it's still kind of an underground thing. The majority of people don't really care to get a psychic reading or to, mediums. They don't believe in it. So anyway, psychics and mediums often charge a few $100s because it's how they need to work their money so they can survive and do what they love for a living. And there's reasons why some are cheaper and some are more expensive. A lot of times, psychics and mediums on the cheaper side, where sometimes I see people charging like $25. I'm like, I don't know who's coming to you, but have fun making a living off of that. Hope you like your day job. Just saying. So the cheaper psychics and mediums, usually they're new. These are, some of the reasons why they're cheaper. They're usually new. They're afraid to charge too much money. Another reason can be that they're only doing it as a hobby. They're doing it on the side. Maybe they love their full-time day job and they just do their spiritual work, as a part-time job or on the side. So they don't really need that much income from it. Also, maybe they have a significant other who helps pay the bills. So, they're okay, charging $100, whatever it is. Now, when somebody wants to do it full time, and especially when they're independent or, maybe they're not married, maybe they have children to take care of, you never know what somebody's situation is. So they're going to have to charge more money. And it's not just how much money does somebody need. There's a lot of other things that go into it as well. It's also how much does that person feel that is equal to what they're going to deliver. And when you look at it that way, it's kind of like, okay, when you see somebody charging $60 for an hour reading, they really only value that information for $60. So they think they're only worth $60 for that. Okay, if that's what you think and the person's all right with it, that's fine. But on the other hand, if somebody has worked years, practiced for years, taken lots of classes, is very confident in their work, then they are going to feel like they're worth $200-$300 because that feels like an equal compensation. And it's just like working in any job. If you're working in any job, your day job, whatever, and you feel like what you're putting in is not what you're getting back money-wise, you're going to notice that and you're not going to like it. The same thing happens with psychics, mediums, and healers. We're still human. I don't think some people seem to forget that we're actually still human. But so, we like also to feel equally compensated for the effort and, how, the standards that we hold ourselves to. So, that's kind of the reason why most psychics and mediums charge so much money, because, if they would like that to be their profession full time, they need to make sure they can pay the bills and pay the rent and everything. And also at the same time, they most likely will have more experience or, just be all around really good. So just to clear some of that confusion, or if you are always questioning that, just so some people understand. It also varies by region, the pricing. People in California, just for example, maybe one lady, or the going rate in California, maybe it's $350. Maybe $350 is totally average over there. For a psychic or medium. Oh yeah, $350. Oh yeah, that's what I usually pay. Where in New Jersey, it seems that when you Google in New Jersey, there's page 1 and page 2. The most common number is around $225. So it also depends on what area you're in. Another thing, before I forget, because I had mentioned it earlier, I wanted to make sure we talk about frauds and phonies, scammers. So how to detect phonies? The most common way to detect one is when you go for a reading and they tell you that you're either cursed or you have a black cloud over your head. And then they want you to come back for a cleansing, which is like the famous phony word, which I can't stand when people say it to me, because that's what the phonies call it. I can't stand it. Do not call it a cleansing if you come to me. I usually don't even respond to people if they use the word cleansing. Just do not call it a cleansing. So anyway, the phonies usually call it a cleansing. It is one of my biggest pet peeves. And so that word seems to get around, and then I'll get emails saying, some lady told me this, that, and I need to get a cleansing or whatever. It's not a cleansing. But usually, anyway, they'll give you a reading, and then they'll say, you have a dark cloud over your head, or a family curse, or something like that, or somebody's doing black magic on you, and they can reverse it, blah, 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 blah. And they'll charge you like $1,000 upwards for the cleansing, or for, removing the curse. That's usually the scam. They're usually scamming you. And not to say that would never happen, because curses can be real. Black magic can be real. And a dark cloud over your head, or, a spirit attachment, or whatever, that can, that all can be real. And, I guess I can't say that a true, genuine psychic would never say, hey, you need a healing session. Because I think I'm sure I've said that a few times on a few occasions, but I've suggested it, and I've never requested thousands of dollars. It's the standard pricing that's on my website. So it's not like a psychic or, an intuitive or whatever can't suggest somebody get a healing session. It's totally logical and acceptable. But it's usually when they're like, oh, the dark cloud or the curse, come back, $1,000, $2,000. Who even knows how much more money people have spent? That's usually one of the first signs that, or the biggest sign that somebody was not real. And sometimes it seems like they did a great reading. I've heard people say, well, she seemed really good and she got a lot of stuff that I didn't tell her. And it doesn't mean, she could still be psychic. That doesn't mean that she's a great person. It doesn't mean that she's not going to scam you. Maybe she's still psychic, but she might still be a scammer. But so it can be hard to figure out who's real and who's not. The best way to avoid phonies is, first of all, don't bother with the boardwalk thing unless you're just looking for some fun. Don't bother with the $5 boardwalk lady. Don't bother. Someone who practices or promises to bring back your loved one, and they're going to do some, hoodoo voodoo magic, which is a real thing, and it's not impossible to do. But they're usually, in my personal opinion, they're usually a scammer. Promising to do these awesome magic spells to get your ex back. Another thing is, it's hard, I'm not really sure. It's something I know about, but I haven't really experienced. But I do know phonies often do cold readings. So they'll go by, like, the clothes you're wearing or the jewelry you have on, and they'll try to, like, pull stuff from that. And that's not really psychic. That's not really psychic ability. Someone who's psychic is tapped into your energy, not your clothes, not your jewelry, not the way you wear your hair, not your facial expressions. They're not tapped into that stuff. They're tuned into your energy, which is, not seen. Another thing is definitely researching your reader, whoever you're a medium or whatever, making sure that they're legit. Do they have a website? Not everyone is great on social media, but, if they have a good Facebook, that's something. Seeing if they have any reviews on Google or any of the other places. And, also, going with your intuition. And also, when you're choosing a psychic, do not be in a rush to get one right away. Because you may end up choosing a really bad reader over a really good one. Be patient. If you want a really good reading, be patient. If you're really drawn to, you want to be drawn to the right reader, not the person who can do it tonight or tomorrow morning. You got to really make sure that you are intuitively drawn to the right person to get the best experience. Don't be in a rush to get, whoever's available today. Then I'm going to go into entertainment versus helping. I talked about it a little bit earlier. I just want to mention it again. Think about it when you go to get a reading. Do you want entertainment or do you want help? Do you want guidance? Do you want insight and advice? Or do you strictly just want entertainment and you want, someone to impress you with their psychic abilities? So you got to think about that. And that also can help you choose, who you're going to go to. Do I want someone who is going to help guide me and who I can trust and they're legit and, I feel a good connection with them and I actually have questions. I need help with my life. You're going to go to someone who focuses more on that. If you're just like, I'm bored. I just feel like getting a reading. Let me just go see what this person gets. Then you want someone who, is more of an entertaining reader. So that's where you would go for, the psychic parlor, whatever, the lady who's open, 9 to 6, walk in anytime. They're usually the more entertainment based ones. I personally am totally more on the helping side. If I'm not helping, I'm not happy. So I can't, if I'm not helping you, don't come to me. That's how it works. If you don't need help, you don't need me. Questions to avoid. So questions to avoid when you get a reading. If you are truly seeking an intuitive reading, a psychic guidance, psychic insight, you really want to try to avoid asking when I and will I. They are so disempowering. When you say when I, will I, you are totally taking your own power away from the equation. And I understand, I completely understand it. Because there's some things I want to know. When the hell is this guy going to stop being so damn stubborn and give in to me? When? I want to know when. I want to know the day. I want to know the time. I really want to know when. I want to know, will I ever fall in love and get married? I honestly want to know these things. Will I ever freaking fall in love and get married? When will this guy stop playing games? I want to know when, and I want to know, will I? So I totally understand where that comes from. But I also know that it's not necessarily helpful. You can ask, will I? Maybe I'll get no, and then I'll be all, that's terrible. Why would you even ask, will I ever find love? If anyone actually responds to that question with no, you need to smack them in the face. You don't want to ask when I or will I. They're disempowering. When you ask when or will, you're surrendering to a fate. Now you start to believe that you're fated, and that assumes that everything's written in stone, and it's not. There are some things in life we're meant to do. There are some things in life we're meant to experience. There are some things I feel are destiny, but it's not every single thing in our life. There are so many things that we control, and we have free will to choose, how we want things to go. So asking when I will I needs to be reversed back onto you. When will you put in the effort? When will you tell that guy to stop playing games? When are you going to tell him to knock it off and stop being such a jerk? What am I going to tell him? And then turn it around. Will I ever fall in love and get married? I don't know. Will I stop liking guys that are a pain in the ass? Well, I know. Is it possible? So, I'm sorry. I shouldn't say that. There's probably some men listening. I'm just, putting a little venting in there. But I'm just saying, I have my when and will I. There's definitely things I would love to know when and will I. But when you surrender to that, you're disempowering yourself. You want to turn it back on you. When You know, when will I meet blah, 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 blah. Well, when will you do something different? When will you make the change in your life to allow that thing to happen? When will you ask yourself if you're doing anything to cause it, Will I ever fall in love and get married? Will you ever go somewhere different other than the same 3 places you go, for the last 3 years? So, when and will I is just something that you want to try to avoid. The best things to ask in a psychic reading or intuitive reading is what, how, and why. What should I do? What is actually happening? What is this person actually feeling or thinking? Why does this keep happening? Why does this person treat me this way? How can I make this situation better? What should I do about the job that I hate? So, you just want to try to avoid when I, will I. It's very disempowering. And now the other thing that's very important that I think a lot of people probably wonder is how to develop abilities. So I feel like most people listening to this probably at least have an interest in intuition and psychic development. So how to develop them, the number one way is, first of all, learning directly with a mentor. You should really learn, take some formal training in psychic development with a mentor, and where you get to practice with other people, or at least with the mentor. The best way to develop your psychic abilities is to use them on purpose. You have to use them. It's not reading a bunch of books. I mean, you can read books if you want, educate yourself. But reading a crap load of books isn't going to make you more psychic. It's not really going to help your psychic ability develop. The only way you can really develop your abilities is to use them. And in order to use them, you need to learn how to use them. And to learn how to use them correctly, properly and safely and all that, is you want to learn directly with a mentor. It doesn't have to be in person. In person is always better. In my opinion, I prefer to do things in person, but you can learn just as well from a distance online. But you definitely want to have that physical, or that at least that verbal interaction. And I feel like at least seeing face to face, whether it's a video, whatever. But psychic abilities especially, you've got to have that connection has to be there. I'm not going to say you can never develop your abilities by reading books. There could be at some point there was someone who was self-taught, because who was the first teacher? So at some point somebody taught themselves or, learned on their own. So it's not impossible. But at this point, it's normally you would learn with somebody who has already been doing it, who was taught by somebody else, who was taught by somebody else. But if you want to know the quickest way to develop them, take a class, learn how to use them, and then use them. And it is that typical practice makes perfect in a way. So practicing is really what develops them. So for people that do not want to pursue their intuition or psychic development professionally, those who kind of have had experiences and they know that it's real and they believe in it, but maybe they just don't feel, some people just don't feel called to it. That's fine. But I also know that there are people who think they're not called to it because they don't think they have the gift. Some people are in such denial. And we all have the capability to develop our psychic abilities and intuition. We all have it. We really do. It's part of human nature. It's part of who we are. So if you've had experiences where you've known something before it happened, or maybe you knew somebody was going to die before they died, or you knew a bad event was going to happen before it happened, or maybe you had a dream that ended up coming true, or maybe you just knew something before somebody told you. You knew something about someone and they never told you. And then even down to the most common things of knowing you're going to, or thinking of somebody and out of the blue they send you a text message. All of that is psychic ability. And I don't know why people say, well, I don't really consider myself psychic, but I knew like 10 things before they happened growing up. Like, because you're psychic. Because you are. Because we all are. Some of us are just, more strongly inclined to be talented or to have the talent to do it. It just, maybe it comes to us more easily, I guess you can say. Just like somebody who is musically talented, playing music comes more naturally to them. So they are the same. I just want to make sure, if you're thinking, I don't have what it takes, or I don't, that's a gift and I don't have it, only special people. We all are special. We all have it. And if you feel a calling, or you feel like it's something you want to do, don't let your self-denial hold you back. Go for it. Go take a class somewhere, or, go buy your first book if that's where you want to start. But, don't run away from it because you think you're not good enough, or, you're not meant to do it, or, there's no way this is real, or, I'm not a psychic. That was just a random experience, but, I don't consider myself intuitive. Well, you're full of crap because it's not true. We're all intuitive. It's part of nature. It's part of being human. Well, thank you for listening to this episode. I will be back very shortly. Sorry that I took a little bit of a break, but I had some things going on. Some good, some bad, but overall, they were some, I guess, positive transitions in the end. And also, this week I was in a bit of pain with my sciatica. And every time I sat down, and actually this week and last week, every time I sat down to do my podcast, I decided not to because I didn't want to be moaning in pain through the whole thing. So I'm sorry for the delay. Hopefully there will not be as long of a delay before the next one. So thank you for listening again, and I will be seeing you soon. Have a great week and a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Cosmic Wisdom Radio. Make sure to visit our website, cosmicwisdom.org, where you can subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. To support this show and receive exclusive bonus content for your spiritual development, become one of our patrons at patreon.com/Cosmic Wisdom Radio. Your host, Faye Weber, is available for private sessions and mentoring at GenesisSpiritualHealing.com. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode of Cosmic Wisdom Radio.